Slushy crickets today. I guess it's here. And we still got the crickets. So what do? Those of us that are not pretenders, I guess we're going to do. We'll do what we can. Otherwise, we're going to have problems. We're going to watch as this thing comes down on us. Despite all the fine work of everybody trying to warn everybody, if we can put it in the context of the revolution, all of us that were the Paul Reveres, waving our little light, riding our little horse. So we continue. We continue until enough people apparently see it and decide they can act. Do something. Do something. Just anything that, like I say, I don't know what else to keep it simple. Find a wrong that you need to make right. In other words, there's a passion involved, and you go to stop it. You just make the wrong right. Even the little ones. Just start there. So we're in this silent weapons, quiet war, digital onslaught, and it's all this is really written down, predictable. It's I guess up to us to choose to see it. I guess we can see it and sit there, or we choose to act. So until we really get active, we get out of what we were told and really take responsibility for that ignorance, and then have to make decisions about whether or not we're going to agree to this now that we're finding it out. Until we take these actions, behind the woodshed, time for you to open a can of whoop-ass is what I'm saying. You open the can of whoop-ass. You do that by knowing the principles that you need to go bring someone behind your woodshed and bring the principle to them that they've forgotten, the respect that they've lost. And as I've said, that's a target-rich environment anymore. That you can go just about anywhere to find violation, disrespect, oppression of some sort. We're really just saying stop the oppression. And everyone has their different level. It's not determined by anybody. Everyone has that level, and everybody just maintains a place so that at least they're comfortable enough that they don't have to respond to that. But there's an attack going on for those of us that have looked at it and seen it, and not just said, okay, there it is, and I'm just going to kind of avoid it. I suppose, had I not gone to the forest for at least 7 or 8 years, and then and society came out to where I was, I probably may still believe I can stay away, but I found out that wasn't really the case. There's no real way there's no other country to move to. There's no other West to go inhabit. And so that was really the dividing line for me as far as, okay, well, you have to go back and do something. So the target-rich environment, the aggression, the oppression is on us. It's at every turn. They're using this digital technology to help take us out. This is that technocracy part. I don't necessarily believe the world's going to technocracy. That's just the tool for those that are implementing this plan that they've got that you don't have. They have a plan you don't. Who's going to win? That's as simply as what it is. They have a plan, and they'll tell you all about the plan if you just want to read it to see where they're going and what they're going to do and how they're going to do you. How do you like that? They'll tell you exactly what they're doing. There's nothing under the sun. There might have been before, but now it's the cat, as they say, is out of the bag. So we have an onslaught coming in digital form, and I noticed this was kind of interesting to me. I don't like it. I've been talking to you about it. I know Grimner's been talking about it, pointing out this thing with we have a digital attack going on. We don't even have our own computers now. The people who've taken the software have now claimed your hardware. Remember, I talked about this when I talked about GM. Actually, I think it was GM stepping up and saying, listen, because there's software in your computer chip in your car, we still own your car. Now, I don't know what the heck the purchase was then, but here's what they're bringing. This is what corporatism does. This is what bottom line does. This is what lack of ethics does, is lack of morals, lack of actual physical being. Remember, these corporations are legal entities strictly on paper. These are a bunch of men and women behind the scenes using these tools to harm us. They don't have to. In fact, they were made, before to make a corporation, you had to declare your benefit. And if you ever strayed out of that, you were whacked. You were taken right out. And we need to kind of get back to that. We need to get back to that for sure. But when your states, in a lot of states you can find, they adopted this Model Corporation Business Act as their formation and new establishment. They admitted by their own statutes that they are now corporate beings. These are aggregated people. Now, I don't know where all the people got together to sign on the bottom line to become shareholders, but that's how they're treating y'all. But they did it. This is a legal thing. A legal entity called the Bar Association did this. And if you look and you read long enough, and you go to the archives of the law libraries and you read the books, don't go get on the internet what someone thinks, but you go to the books that explain to you how this happened. Or you go to the archives of the states and you sit down and you read. You have to do some of this. I don't know what else to say. That is probably the most arduous thing you will have to do if you really want to get somewhere, really have the foundation, the black and white I'm talking about, that gives you certainty, that gives you the power to look through people. You look right through them when they come in and they're puffing or they're pretending. You look right through them almost instantaneously. That you go read this black and white, you see the transition across the land of the United States from New York all the way across the country. You watch these laws being put in place to empower the secretness of the Bar Association right in your face, putting in a corporate governance structure over the top of your government. And the corporations then gave themselves those licenses to demand of you your application into their state to beat you up. And then when you got inside that state, you're all persons. You're all legal entities, and you're all treated equal. That's why all people can be, corporations are people too, because they're lying about what that peopleness is. And we were supposed to keep a vigilant stand against that, and we haven't. Doesn't mean it's over. It means that every day that goes by, it's going to be tougher. It really is just a little bit tougher. And yet I see how simply it can be destroyed. The law that we aren't enjoying directly, we have to assert now, can be brought. That's the objective basis. It doesn't mean more than that. It's this thing that's written that cannot be denied. And guess who it was authored by? But the people that occupy you. It cannot be denied by that author. This is how you work the elements of authority backwards to destroy or expose, I would say, the lack of authority. And they brought on this corporate legalism structure. And they brought in the corporations were powerful. And those corporations went to the bottom line. That was what it was all about. Forget the public, the public as in the people's purposes. And these corporations have risen up. And they're like Apple, the most wealthy in legal fiction, monetization. They're the most wealthy entity right now as far as companies, if I understand that correctly. If we get rid of the biggest corporations called government, whose GDP is the fact that they just print more money. Think about that. But here we have, as I say, you open the can of whoop-ass. This is you doing something. As I heard Ron before, and thank you, Ron, for the shout-out, and being on UCY right between Hook and Ron, this is an interesting little package of time we get to go through the week. Being kind of together. I can hear parts of Ron's broadcast earlier when I get on, parts I don't hear. But we have a consistent voice to be bringing for people. It says you just learn this, and then, as he said earlier, you get angry. Well, I say let's take your anger into action. See, I don't know if I'm really even moving by anger at all anymore. I'm so into now we are in a war. I don't have time to be angry. It's like a circa in WT, World Truth. She very insightful, that she brings an idea, and I can't remember what the passage was talking about. I think it was something, people that don't weep and maybe they're a problem. And I had to look at that and say, well, I've realized that we don't have time to weep. We'll weep later after the war is done. And I said, I'm hoping maybe that promise will be enough that extricates ourselves out of those that don't weep are a problem. I think we're going to delay the weeping until we've solved the attack. That's where I've put myself. I went beyond, I think, anger. I went into what is really the reality, at least the best we can identify it. And it just came down to the fact that we're being attacked from all sectors. We as men and women, as people, first of all, and then in our society, And then in anything we might be able to do for ourselves that was the more proper thing to do, has been completely destroyed in favor of this other reality, this other thing, this other fiction that it's not a fiction in the fact that it works against us. We believe in it. See, I think more appropriately for what I think, it's not just the belief in authority that's the root of all evil. I think it's the failure to recognize your authority. There is authority. I've always said this a long time ago. Do not deny any authority, even the one that looks fictional to you. Go ahead and give it its space, but give it no more than what it deserves. And what we forget is our own authority. And we forget the jurisdiction it resides in. And I'm talking about the legal residence. I'm talking about where you sit in your nature. And so we have a lot we haven't been told. But anyway, getting back to the things we get to do. I don't like this from the onset. I shouldn't be wasting this much time on it, but I want you, at least you can do, if you can't fight this one, I don't know what we're doing here about this. As I've been pretty adamant, and I don't know what it meant, but Skype, I just stopped using it. Now, I don't communicate with a lot of people anymore. Everyone wanted to stay on Skype. I predicted what was going on with Skype and Microsoft a long, long time ago. It's come to fruition. This Microsoft company is no good. I don't know about the people in it or not. I'm sure that they think they're doing well. They certainly have brought the world into a place where they're using their computer system, but now they're trying to take control of your hardware, your life. And this is one thing you can step up to do for yourself. This is where you can lay down. If there's nothing else, if you can't see how this is wrong, then I don't know about your principle, where your principal bars are. Where do you put your principles when you have a company that you're using their product that comes and takes your property, your hardware. Their software is coming to claim your property. A company like GM says they still own the car because you don't have a right when you purchased it to go change the software because that's theirs still. This is taking property, intellectual property way beyond. This is how the TPP gets done, the TPP-IP. This is where free trade takes it goes off the rail. Right now it's really a battle for your own computer if you have Windows. You can't just make a decision and be left alone. In fact, they're even saying it in the title, like it or not. Like it or not, folks. Listen to the attitude that's coming against us. This is just a small snippet that you may or may not be able to want to do anything about. And I think it's not a defining line, but I think it says something when you don't put up the resistance. Now, I haven't liked to have to take on the extra demand to learn a different operating system, but the writing's on the wall here. I stopped using Skype. I picked up 2 different communication devices. I've just developed I just found another one that's been developed for us. Right in the browser itself. What I've been asking some people to communicate through to perfect maybe another broadcast platform potential. So it's right in our browsers now. The technology is also in the good side, but it doesn't come to take over your system. That Microsoft plans, like it or not, folks, plans to push Windows 10 upgrade more aggressively. Who is this company? You think no would be no. And so I'm just going to give you a couple things here. These people, I've been talking about this. I know Grimner's been pushing it as well, telling you that these people are just not good. Get Windows 10 prompt adopts malware-like tactics to lure you into upgrading. No, this is harassment. This is doing things beyond your consent that this company is doing. And this is not the only company. I just want to focus a little bit on this to show you this is like a daily thing for a lot of millions and millions of people have this operating system. But this is the future. They want your data. They want to be able to monitor you. This is the surveillance state we've been talking about. This is technocracy in action. It is aggressive. Like it or not. And this is the point. When it gets to like it or not, you better start making it important. And I know it's just a little thing. Maybe you just unplug the computer and stop using them. That'd be great. How about your phones? How about if we just stop doing that? But then we cut our nose to spite our face, and we lose our connectivity that is going to help us, empower us to do more. to get the fast information to help each other, to be able to talk directly to people, and better than chat, as I just found out this week, communicating with another host. It's just there's just certain things you can't do in a chat. That we go work together to advance the next best place for ourselves. That Microsoft is trying to interfere aggressively, like it or not. Microsoft fools users into believing that they aren't being spied on by renaming a data tracking device. Intentional deception here in this company. Again, it's not the only one. This is what your future is. If you continue to be silent, it's not just using the product and putting up with it. It's now you have to resist it by putting a letter in, at least a letter of non-consent. Stop it. You don't own my hardware, and I don't need you to continue to put it in here. And I don't care what your legal agreement said. It wasn't right. Now, I would say maybe even go, for those of you that don't even want to hear this, I would even maybe look at this, and I haven't quite yet. I've been more turning my mind, but I know I'm not going to do anything with it for myself. We have other important issues that I'm focused on to do. That I would almost set it up that if I would send them a bill, I'd say, if next time I have to deal with a Windows 10 problem on my computer, I'm going to bill you $300 an hour to deal with it. $300 broken down by the minute, just like the attorneys do. And then I'm going to sue you in small claims court. Locally. Because that's where you do business with me, is in my house. So it's local you do business with me. Because that seems to be in this country anymore. Monetary damage and doing business with somebody is the standard. And no one noticed that. That's commerce, folks. You don't have a remedy outside of commerce, apparently. So that's what you do. You turn it into a commerce condition. That you're interfering with my life in a commerce way. You put a monetary value on it, and you give them the notice that you'll sue them, and then you sue the guy that's the president. You don't sue the corporation, because they'll bring it out and they'll put it into a different court. You sue the guy who's doing it privately. Are you going to win? Well, I don't know. Go to a small claims court and try it. They got the form. You just fill out the blank. I've been saying this for years and years and years. I'm astonished that more people haven't come on to do it. Once you learn this information and you get attacked enough, why that hasn't come as a natural course of how to stop people, I just am flabbergasted at some level. Small claims court forms, and there's some bad ones, but there's a couple of good ones I've found on the internet. You can see what you really should do. They're really simple. You make a private lawsuit against the guy who's running the company, who's signing the checks for coming against your hardware. Do you know what would happen to that company, that guy that you sue? If everybody that didn't want to do Windows 10 did that? You set a monetary value for what your time is worth dealing with his harassment, his trespass. Are you going to win? Well, I don't know, but you know what? You get to file the case. You want to put a donation somewhere? How about you donate into your own fees for your court case at small claims court? I've been telling the miners for years and years and years, start out with a court case in small claims. That's your common law court, not the common law of the bar, which is their decision, the common law of the man and his shown and evidenced harms, or the woman, and they're shown and evidenced harms by a harm to that property or the right to not have to engage their property. So you file it. What's the price? $50 to $100? I don't even know. I go on waivers, so it doesn't matter. I got nothing behind the woodshed. I just go ahead and go on waivers. Justice is supposed to be free, isn't it? Do you understand, like I keep telling everybody about going into court and fighting every traffic ticket? Do you know how much that gums up the works and then hassles the people, re-engages the people that thought they had a carte blanche ticket to go cha-ching on you? Get in your face, taking your stuff? Stealing your time, moving in your computer, possibly destroying it, having to spend more time to deal with it. Focusing your life on the digital life that you really should be a tool and not a burden. So, I guess I'm just taking this, and I take way a lot more time. I just wanted to go through it. I always tell myself a lot of things I don't do during the broadcast when I get on here, but these things that I bring are the opportunities before us to stem the tide of the oppression. get us into the game, if I can say it that way. As Ron says, game on. Boy, it is. It's not a game, though. This is your life. This is your existence, and this is the future existence. We have it to do, and they give us all the tools if we would just accept it. Now, in the interim, and I was going to talk about this last week, actually, but I didn't like there's a little thing here that I wasn't too sure, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, and I got this from Grimner on the Freakers Ball. Again, you can listen into them Friday night, a Moose Girl, and happy B-Day to you. Grimner says you can go to a website, you get this a post-production broadcaster using the GWX control panel to permanently remove the Get Windows 10 icon. So this is one thing you can do, and although Windows is adjusting to show you the intention, how aggressive they're being, like it or not, how aggressive they are. They're adjusting this as people come forward to give their time to help you. So you can download products to help fend off these people. I would even take and say the fact that the time I took to have to do this was the time I would put value on if I was to go do a small claims lawsuit. You imagine the look on their face when they got that service of process? And he's got to come all the way from Redmond, Washington to wherever you are because he does business with you at your house, and you get to sue them in the county seat where you have a residence, so-called. See, I don't worry about the words at that point. They want to think I'm a resident at that point. I'm working a remedy. I don't care. In my paperwork, I don't take any of those statuses. I claim who I am and how that sets up why they can't even have a jurisdiction on me. So I make a public record right there as well. But see, the system looks at you a certain way. That's fine. Let them look. You put your record the other way. You bring that guy. You think he's going to get a return receipt requested. You're sued. Come to a small claims court. I've got a claim of up to whatever your jurisdictional limit is based on the notices I gave you before to stop messing with me. I'd do it, folks. It would be worth the donation of the suit money if I paid it, or waivers like I do it for free for the price of a stamp, just to imagine the look on his face, or her, whoever that is. Why aren't we engaging at that point? Do I like it? No, but I can get a smirk on my face over it. So we have a ultimate outsider. He or she is providing a program to try and stop this aggressive, like it or not, aggressive attack on your hardware, into your life, the intrusion into your life for big data. It's all it's about. Surveillance state. Skype. I told you a long time ago, everyone was wondering, why'd they pay so much for Skype? And I said, because they want that algorithm they can't break. Once Microsoft pays for it, they get to know what it is, and they get the back door to all the servers that are listening to your conversations and watching you and your chats and your file transfers and all of that. And sure enough, that's what's happened, hasn't it? And I hear crickets on everybody that professes to be free of this nonsense or aggressing against it or defending against it, whatever you want to talk about, that continue to use these things. But here's someone else that steps up to help us all stop this incursion. I'm saying go ahead. I'll send you the link. Even maybe Grimner might even had it put in the link already to back it up in the RLM chat. I don't know. The tool to stop this, and the problem was that why I didn't talk about it last week was because the guy who wrote the program found that reports are coming that Windows changed what they're calling the files again, and he has to keep up with this now. It's like a moving target. So I didn't want to just hand you this program and then have it be something you had to keep up with. But this, again, with all the stories that came out this last week on this aggressive attack, this is no different than the government, the police knocking on your door, looking through your, rifling through your stuff, going into your bedroom every day. That we have to draw the line somewhere. Some of you won't care. Some of you, I don't know. Some of you think it's frivolous. I don't know. I'm suggesting all I talk about behind the woodshed is things where you can step off the merry-go-round they put us on and say, no, I do no longer consent to this insanity. And what I've identified is that you are doing this, and it's a crime now against me. I'm going to stop it. Now, they've only given the peons the right of civil action unless you have a statute to get to the criminal side in the name of the state. You got to find those. But even so, we have civil action to our abilities. And I don't know why more people are not stepping up in that capacity. It's really bothered me. And when you do the first lawsuit, you get to see them. It doesn't matter then if you're teaching yourself. You get to watch how these amoebas work. You get to watch how the system tries to defeat you. If they do, you may find out that the system is there when you set your case properly. You have the proper evidence. You don't go on opinion. You have pieces of paper that say improve things that are elements of your charge against someone harming you. You put that in the record properly, and not so hard in the lower courts. You just put it in the record, and you might actually win. You remember that, if 1,000 attacks come at this guy like this, the first guy that wins, or first woman that wins, can you imagine the shock? Talk about shock and awe. Going against Microsoft on a small claims case because they can't get out of your computer? Research it, folks. There's a certain standard they're going to kind of put against you. You're going to have the answers. I'm certain they're going to use their little use statement. That, or as you make your record, you can say, listen, if you don't stop, not only will I charge you for my time, I'm going to charge you if I find it, I'm going to charge you from the time of the entry of the file, so many dollars a minute it was on my computer. Beyond my consent. Whether you stole it or not in the agreement, it's irrelevant. I've just negated that part. Well, you just make it an issue, folks, right? So here, I'm giving you some information. It's kind of frivolous at one level. But if it's simple and it gets you in the game, it gets you active where we need to be active, I don't care how small the fight can be. I don't care how small and frivolous it sounds. This is just one of those things. It's just another weight, a millstone, another part of the millstone that they're putting on our neck. That's critical to what we're going to do in the future and our ability to respond. And if we can use these as excuses to engage, to get the lessons we need in order to maybe engage. If we lose this time, we engage them next time. We might win. We certainly make it tougher on them. That's just at least what I've learned over quite a few decades, folks, is that you think, well, I did win my first case. I guess that's what got me into it. I did win, but I had some help from people when I walked into the law library, and they said, hey, you can fight this. Don't take this laying down. This is where it's all wrong. And to their credit, I come in on their work. But I took it on my own. Again, I made it my own. And I found out that maybe I won't win every case, but I make a point. And a lot of times it's enough point that they just stop messing with you. And I said, maybe that's just good enough. I don't like having to do that, but we don't have to shoot each other either. And they just learn to stop messing with you. And I've learned I can win lawsuits even when I'm obstructed from justice, folks. I've told you all about this. Don't think that there's justice out there. When you have the right point and they don't want your point to be made, you will be obstructed from the courts. I've had it happen quite a few times. People say that's a defeat, but they're ignorant. They don't understand. See, because in the fact of the obstruction, something else happens, which was the object of my lawsuit. And just to reference the fact that I sued privately a Forest Service district ranger because he closed a road he had no authority to close. They obstructed my access to court to sue him and his wife, and I did not get that lawsuit. I went all the way to the state Supreme Court. They denied me there, but in the process of doing that gate got open, and up until just here this winter, it hadn't been locked again. Now, and I think that was an honest maybe mistake. Enough time has passed that I think that guy's kind of gone, and maybe someone was closing our little road because they think it's dangerous, and it may be out of good nature they've closed it, but we've got it open again, so it's not a problem. My point is I did a lawsuit obstructed from justice. I still got the gate open. Is it a win? Well, not from the standpoint of having to deal with it, but we're not guaranteed not to be trespassed against. The courts do not give you the right to go collect. They don't give you a collection of your damages. They give you a paper that says you have the right to go collect if you haven't really noticed how ineffectual our legal and law system really is. That was my first introduction in law when I was a little kid. Not quite a little kid, moving through adolescence. Walked into a lawyer's office looking for extra work, because that's all we did. We worked looking for a job. We always looked for something to go do, something to make $1 to go do something. Put in the bank, That's how we learned. That's how we came up in the world, looking for work, to do something to make ourselves a little better, to get the next better thing going, get what we wanted, work for what we needed. Walk into an attorney's office, and I can't remember now what got me to go in there. He started laughing. He started talking to what I wanted to do. He goes, "You want to make some money? You can have all the money you can collect from that bottom drawer." And it was one of these big legal filing cabinets, and I was just shocked at how big this filing cabinet was. This is like you could put a queen-size bed in the bottom drawer. No, it wasn't quite that big, but it was monstrous. It took a lot of effort pulling on it. And I pulled that thing open, and it was full of paper, up to the brim, sticking out. Once I got it out there, it was hard to get it all back in, actually. He started laughing. He goes, "You can have all the money you can collect out of that bottom drawer." And I said, "What is it?" He goes, "Those are all the judgments I've won." And he goes, "Let me tell you something about this system. It only gives you the right to get that paper to go after somebody legally. And that's what the stuff that's in their accounts. If you can't find their accounts, that paperwork is valueless. But you can have every dime." Yeah, it said half of it. It was like I was being a collection agent. I didn't even walk in there for that. You can have half of everything you collect out of that drawer. And folks, this drawer was full of paper, full of judgments that could not be collected. That's your justice system. That should have been a clue to me. So, this is not about actual justice. It's about being able to use a system that keeps us from using lead to stop somebody. That's our new civil society. See, the government possesses now the Civil War, and now forces all the occupants to go through a more civilized way to work out their differences. So, here we have a corporation coming right after us, aggressively. I'm asking you to consider that this is a possibility for you to step in. You can get all kinds of people to do this, and use your small claims courts that are local to you, just to get in the practice of doing it. Somebody's made a tool for you to throw out to help keep this off of you. Although it's going to be a moving target. You'll get all these links on the Blogcaster. My focus here is not on telling you about Windows, Microsoft, or any of that. My focus here is to tell you we are being transgressed against, and we are going to be transgressed against us aggressively until we stand up and stop it. And each one has to find that wrong that just tweaks us enough to get passionate about stopping it. And you make the decision to stop it. It doesn't matter whether you're successful. It's that you've now decided to do that thing. Along the way, you should find some people that will help you. You can kind of go along together. If you actually work it really well, you each take different aspects of an issue and you still attack them. It's like the lawful way to gang up on somebody. Well, it's not even anybody. It's a somebody, isn't it? It's not anyone. It's somebody, right? A legal body that you're after. Someone who don't want you harmed. There's someone behind the legal body attacking and transgressing you. If you understand these someone behind the legal body, being different entities, if you will, if I can say it that way, even though one may be a man or a woman and one's literally a body, a fictional body, when you start to lay your condition out with these understandings, you'll start to understand more of what I'm saying on how we address these things. And where we haven't been explained about this, it starts to bring a lot more clarity on why I say certain things the way I do. We're not, we're defective in our education. We're defective in our purpose. We are been trained not to notice an aggressor, and we've been trained not to respond to that aggressor. Or we've been trained to raise the bar on what aggression we will respond to so high that so much floods in underneath that barrier, that bar we place, that the non-response is useless to us. What we're waiting to see, like I say, your Second Amendment is in all likelihood completely debunked from the standpoint of going against a government, its purpose, and stopping that government from aggressing against you. It has already done that. It went to NDAA, folks, and I heard crickets. I'm back to that. Yeah, I'm back to that. We went to crickets. We didn't go to guns. And if we had, think about the reality. And then we're all divided on top of that. Can't even hold a conversation. It's really, really a sad thing. This is we have deficiencies here. And we have to overcome that as well. At any rate, so Microsoft is being aggressive. How do you like it? I'm making two provisions. I don't really upgrade much anymore on that, and maybe I'm vulnerable, but I do other things to try and hopefully protect myself. I've also jumped over. I'm doing Linux. I have been doing it for quite a while. I've been really, really, really happy with that, except it doesn't do a couple things which people in the Linux community are maybe resolving over time, so those things may come off. As soon as it comes down to have or to be with the Windows, it's gone for me, folks. I've already made that decision. It's just having to engage the new form. As I said, it was more difficult. I didn't like the miscommunications or the lack of communications with quite a few people I had in Skype, but I made that decision. And I guess it cleans up your life. I haven't had a lot of communication with a lot of people since then. Maybe I didn't need all that, right? Those that I I work with and work with me, we still contact each other, I suppose. So maybe that was a clarifying moment as well. I've cut out Skype. I've moved to something else. I'm not going to let these guys be aggressive against me and steal my stuff without my permission, or even with my permission. Why would I be exactly agreeing with someone that comes along and wants to steal my stuff? It's not a very good testament to me. But anyway, we have a bunch of decisions to make, and I thought this was pretty simple. Kind of a neat trick. It'd be a neat little game we could play. And functionally going after something and getting ourselves into practice. But we have to be of a right mind to do so, and that takes. I mean, I'm talking biologically now, and it may be that we're finding evidence no different than climate change and all this has been based on bad models, and that's just to advance a fraud on everybody, a new type of economy, which these legal entities will be the only ones to take advantage of. In this whole United Nations affront, there's been this meatless condition that they've been saying. They keep telling us that beef is or meat is very expensive in the world scheme of things, and all the other footprints that they've never been proven to be law, right, or science. That it's now coming out as people start looking at this when the question is raised. It's now coming out that research points to mental health risks associated with a meatless diet. Think about that when you're talking these experts telling you need to be a vegetarian. Now, I know there's some people that can be. There's different gradations of these so-called diets, and I don't know why the word DIE is involved in that, but there it is. You have a diet, you might die. But here is some study about, and I couldn't do this. I tried to be vegetarian. I went for about 8 or 9 months, and I don't think I was unknowledgeable in what I was doing. And I just couldn't do it. I had to have some meat. And it started out, I just had to have my chicken soup. I had to have a little bit of chicken. I couldn't go meatless. And yet here we have it. Going meatless may give us a mental health problems. Mental health risks for me. Now, do you think maybe the UN people know about that? You think maybe that's why they advance these things? I guess that's really all I wanted to really maybe say about that. I go on reading these articles. To me, it's just evidence of the crime against us, evidence of either the crime that someone's committing against us, or how to identify the crime against us, or how, in other words, to see through the crime that's coming against us. Because otherwise, if there's no breach in the contract, we're not interested, right? Contracts are only available when there's a breach, right? You don't consider anything as a contract typically. You understand that you have to follow something, but typically you're not going to worry about the contract itself until there's a breach to it, or a belief in a breach to it, whether that's contrived or whether that's actual. Now we go along and they throw in this stuff, these agreements, these compacts, these pacts, these soft law, this idea, these notions, these models at us for our consumption. And they're all meatless, and so they make us go nuts. Because we don't get to the beef. Where's the beef, folks? More and more women are vegging out of their minds. New research suggests that along with shedding pounds, slashing cancer risks, and boosting life expectancy, vegetarianism could come with lesser-known side effect: panic attacks, OCD, and depression. Let me just stop there. Again, the blogcaster has these stories in it. There's so much information to expose to us. And I say we use this as evidence that you find the report. If someone comes against you with this so-called UN agenda for a more respectful Earth, I find this interesting about this climate pact that they found. All of a sudden now mankind is involved. We'll get to that in a second. They were talking about humans before, and they were talking about protecting Gaia or Earth, weren't they? So we get sucked into all this and don't realize that though we know this, those behind the Woodshed and else places that are of this mind, realize these things that are imposed are not good for our well-being, our welfare, actually the real welfare, not the one they hand you as a benefit. They're not, as I say, they're not conducive to our way of life. Life, folks, not the undead, the legal entity. The corporations are undead, correct? Remember I told you when you look at the statutes, and this is back for a few years, I could not find any reference even to a living human, the living animal. The only time the statutes reference, these corporate statutes reference the human, was when it was dead. You start thinking of, you read enough of this stuff and it starts to make sense after a while, and it's hard to explain to people. That they want to advance to us the things that are harmful, and we have to look at the realities and go against it. I've been trying to talk about this, climate change, the Fukushima, all the stuff that makes no sense to me, even at the most basic science studies. And yet it seems to flourish everywhere. And then when it's not flourishing, it just seems to be a cursory statement of rejection, not an in-depth understanding of the failure. And that's another subtlety, another problem, because when you deal with people that are understanding what that failure is and still trying to be the criminal against you, they will outmaneuver your position pretty quickly. So, go find the study, folks, your meatless diets. And you have to look at, it's not just the meat, it's what comes with that meat that really just does not get complemented by even a complete vegetarian diet. And I tried. I did my darndest. I went about 9 months, and I could just tell you I was going down the tubes. I just couldn't figure out the right combination. Looking at everything I was doing, just wouldn't work. I couldn't eat healthy enough, folks. So I found out for me, I needed some meat. It's not a lot, but it's some. It has to be there. I found, as importantly, it's actually in the oils. The oils are critical. And so we have to take responsibility and pay attention. We have to be aware of things. You just don't do things because someone says. You look at it for yourself. In some regards, do I care what someone's research says about what something does when I can walk out to the plant that they've been studying that says it doesn't work when it does work for me? As I've been saying, you are really just the scientists in your own life. You're the professional of your own life. You're the expert of your own life. You have to be taking responsibility for that. So there may be reports here that show that meatless diets are causing a mental health issue, which is exactly what the UN is promoting, exactly what sustainable development promotes. And what they do is they back it up against improper use of the land. Like a rancher will do it completely different than somebody who's doing it as a warehouse, the production of meat. Whether or not that's a full causative thing, I don't know. What I'm saying is that it really depends on what you're looking and focusing on. As I was telling you, and it just came out in the Corbett report before me on Sunday, which you won't hear, I don't think, on Thursday. I think Ron's right before me on Thursday. You heard that the models are no good. The scientist is saying that if we focus on carbon, we may be focusing on on something that is the causation that we're not responding to, that does harm us. What have I been saying, folks? But the same identical things. Am I so smart? I don't know. I've just been keeping aware. I've been trying not to be duped, folks. I realize how duped I've been. I don't know what it is. I don't judge myself that way about where I am in relation to anything else. There's someone attacking me. I would ask for yourself, respect yourself, to start doing that for yourself. And at some point I think you have to stop the aggression against you, wherever you find it, even if it's Microsoft. Find some time, for those of you that can. Take it on as a little fun project. See what you can do with Microsoft. Go look at their rules, or whatever. Go look at some contract law with respect to this. This is all brand new area within the court system anyway. Go to your learn how to go to your local small claims court. It'll give you immense experience. You know, a federal lawsuit, except for the elements of, let's say, maybe a more complex system, remedy, like in a RICO suit. It's identical. It's identical. If you learn the small claims in a nice, comfortable environment, something that's like your environment, where it's not so formal, all you do is you gain the formality as you move into the bigger areas. It just fascinates me I just chuckle in my mind, just a little thing. What would that guy do at Redmond? He gets a letter, you're served to appear in this small claims court here for damaging me after this notice and this notice and this notice. And this is how much my damages are, you agreed to. I don't know what they're going to respond to in your first letters. They're going to give you the guide. They're going to give you the roadmap on how you can go after them. I can tell you that if you do it right. And so this is just lessons that you learn for yourself. And that can take you off. And do I want to make you litigious? No. I want you to be able to have one of the tools in your belt to respond to these aggressions. It's kind of like having a gun in the Wild West. That's our that's our civil war society today. It's called the war of the courts. It's literally the war adversarial system is the courts, folks. It's not justice. They tell us they tell us the prison we're in. It's over and over. And so your interaction is important. Your lack of consent is important. The notice of that is important, not your silence in lack of consent. You can have consent derived from your silence. And this is the problem that they've put on us. They've made it and required us to have to respond. And partly they did that on presumptions, and partly they did that on the presumptions of your status, which you have been all silent to. This is why we should get into the normal, the notice, and when you see a wrong, go make a notice so that you object. Get yourself on that record, whether or not you advance it. But doing so, and this shows you another failure of the government itself. It's supposed you think it's there to protect you. And I've told you the government corporations have changed from being public benefits to the people to benefits to the public, which is the government now. In other words, the bottom line that we see in these agencies, that they will keep your mind polluted unless evidence is sufficient enough to show that it's going to harm you to a degree greater than they can actually justify, which is all I'm saying is Title 50. They give themselves license to harm you as long as they claim to pay you for your harm, like in the vaccine court, or that it doesn't necessarily degrade the quality of the general population. In other words, they'll take a harm to you as sufficient if it advances the whole agenda, the whole people. The whole people's not you. The whole people is your legislator. in assembly at the state court, and the state building. See, the whole people's not you. People don't understand this. The government has long since thrown the people under the bus. But the EPA pushed to withdraw Dow's Agent Orange herbicide registration. You'd think that would have never made it, folks. Why are they pushing? Why did they just stop it? But this is the problem. What happened here was you think the government's here to help us. You think that it's there to look over and protect us. And in fact, it's only to secure us. Secure you. To hold you fast. Secure you. As they extract things from you. So it takes the voice screaming out that that's going to harm me in a way that not even the government corporation looking for the bottom line can do to stop this stuff. It doesn't stop automatically. This is a really big deal that has to be stopped as well. I'm not sure how to get at it. That the presumption that the government does good has to be thrown on its head. That was created by the Bar Association. That they decide presumably well. That legislatures presumably do constitutional law. This all has to be undone, this lie. It's a continuing fraud. But once in a while some good news breaks through after witnessing Monsanto and Syngenta and Dye Agrosciences getting their way in the land of the free and brave. Freedom, folks, not free. You know that. You're not free from fighting for being as free as you can because there's someone there to take it. Freedom is the range of motion within a constraint or framework of constraint. The land of the free. Sarcasm intended, as they wrote it, so thank you very much for bringing that up, just like I'm just doing for you here. So the word wasn't even brought up parenthetically before. Now people are getting it, folks. So Monsanto and Syngenta and Dye Agrosciences putting out their nonsense. Our nation's put up serious barriers to these companies, while U.S. protective agencies such as EPA rubber stamp corporate chemicals without thorough testing. Earlier, a coalition of environmental activists and farmers groups petitioned and filed a suit against the EPA for registering the Dye's Enlist Duo herbicide. The EPA has essentially agreed to the coalition's information, revealing they have not fully reviewed Enlist's Duo's range of toxic dangers to environments, other species, and, they admit it, humans. So, this was what it took. So I guess if I'm saying and applying what I just said earlier, took a long time to say all that, if you get involved at your local level against a big corporation, suing the people that are actually doing the signatures in that corporation from harming you at a local small claims court, that gives you the experience to learn how to get the evidence that you need to do the very same thing where a supposed protective agency, again it's protecting the corporations, certainly the bottom line, can be then addressed properly. And now we're getting, I guess, the point about the small claims, moving yourself up in the ranks of learning how to address law in lawsuits and the courts. You're becoming less and less the cricket because you're doing more and more the proper action. And you're able to get behind the woodshed and open that can of whoop-ass. It's not me on you, it's you. All this is about you doing that. And maybe why people don't want to listen. They realize intuitively, I think people know this. It is going to require that you have to step up at some point. But I want you to know is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anything big. Just start fixing the little wrongs around you. Don't tolerate this stuff anymore. Get in the practice of being principled in your example. And it's just you're just a pebble in that ocean of ripples of good examples. It almost seems fruitless, but I don't know that it is. I really don't. When you come up and you start getting the evidence out there, you can also expect to be a target. What is the saying? If you're not getting flack, you're not over the target. Well, start getting flacked. Get flacked, you. Means you're on it, folks. They don't like you, and what you can expect from these these protection agencies. You can see the type of protection they give and to whom. It's organized crime protection is what it is. Merck vaccine scientists threatened with jail time for trying to expose massive vaccine data manipulation and fraud. So expect it, folks. This is a war. When you get into these protective agencies, even as a whistleblower, you become a whistleblower inside your own. When you admit into a citizenship, which they treat you like anyway, you might as well embrace some of these. Put these jackets on where it actually does you some good. Throw them off where they don't, and put the burden on the other side to prove that status when it does you no good. But where someone can come in and call themselves an authority, have some authority to say. You're going to, right now in this political environment, and it's been for decades now, you're going to expect to receive flack when you're over the target. You see these protective agencies come after scientists who will call out the science, the actual, at least the question in the science. A Merck vaccine scientist was threatened with jail time for trying to expose the outright scientific fraud and data falsification being used by the vaccine industry to make its faulty products appear to work even when they don't, according to a document filed with the United States government. Filed with the United States government. That means someone had to file that document. You had to learn what the standard was of their acceptance, and then you just file that document. That's making a record. It's evidence of what you have to do. Former Merck virologist Stephanie Crawling tried to go to the FDA with evidence of vaccine research fraud taking place at Merck, but he was threatened with jail time by Merck's own people, according to False Claims Act document he and other co-workers filed with the federal government. So now you know what they did. They filed a false claim over whatever their claim was on the under the False Claims Act. This is a step above going through small claims at your local level, but it's federal false claims is a law that has the elements for it to advance it in the statute. Once you learn the elements to prove your case and the evidence that you need to supply and the way the formality goes to supply that evidence to over a trier of the fact called the judge or justice of the peace in this case, you start to understand how this thing works. It's not that difficult. That you do the very same thing on either the administrative or judicial side. You present your case in a record. If you don't do that, you're just everyone's wasting their time if they're not doing this. There's a way to speak to this beast. We have to adopt that way. I don't like it, but that's the way it is. But to tell you the truth, we've been so undereducated, it's a good thing to have the guidances. To tell you the truth, administrative procedures as laid out in the statutes was a great aid to me understanding what judicial rules were actually wanting me to do. How undereducated we are as a people and what you have to do in order to get it understood to go properly apply things. It doesn't mean it'll happen every time. What I'm saying is that when you have to persist. You're going to find your answers. You'll find them in interesting places. Well, you can't use administrative law. You want to bet? I can use the procedures. I can correlate it. Administrative law is supposed to be the surrogate for judicial. It's the judicial surrogate, so that they don't do takings, is what essentially it is, and they provide due process. So they delineate what you have to do pretty clearly. Administrative law, a whole lot more clear in a lot of instances than you're going to find a rule speaking to. And so as I said, don't be afraid to take on something that looks like you shouldn't be in there if it's going to teach you something. If it's going to bring you advantage, take advantage. Take the opportunity to gain. You need it. I can just tell you, you need it. Here's someone, though, that steps up, they make a complaint, they get hit, so they don't stop, folks. They go ahead and they're going to bring it into district court now. They're exposing a fraud. They can't keep quiet. And you can't accept into what they're going to say. Otherwise, you allow it to continue. And in this case, for vaccines, people die, folks. People get maimed and hurt. And the government has justified it's okay because they give you a vaccine court for monetary damages. And you tell me in a life how monetary damages fixes that life when it's harmed. It might fix a corporation if you see what I'm saying here about what this jurisdiction is it's actually we're dealing with. People are seeing the method we've been identifying. There's all kinds of ways of deception. There's all kinds of ways that the train comes off the track. But you have to step up and talk about it. you're seeing the evidence here as I've been going through these few stories. It takes you to do that. And I don't say it maybe on these issues. It could be just any place you see the wrong. You don't have to go to small claims court. You could just go down to the county commissioners or the city council, and if you knew that there's doing a fiduciary breach, you put them on notice for the fiduciary breach. They have to really consider the next step they do. Otherwise, you could bring your lawsuit. So by knowing enough to walk into a fiduciary meeting where there's some officials that have fiduciary obligations and duties, and you can pin them to that, or the failure means their culpability, that may be enough to avoid the harm, right? It doesn't necessarily take a lawsuit. I'm just explaining how that these tools are here to go have you open your own can of whoop ass. Don't take it from these immature, unprincipled types. I guess that's all I'm here to try to do. I don't see enough of that, I guess. Another thing, breaking. Greenpeace co-founder reports Greenpeace to the FBI under RICO and wire fraud statutes. And I wasn't, we've heard this story a little bit, but Greenpeace in furtherance of what is in effect its war against every species on the planet has now turned to what, on the face of things, looks to me like an outright breach of the RICO, wire fraud, witness tampering, and obstruction of committee statutes. I have called in the FBI, as written by Dr. Patrick Moore, the co-founder of Greenpeace. He sees this has gone off the rail. It's not just going after every species. It's done by any species of crime, these people. This is what we said we've also identified. It's taken the founder of this organization to step up and say this organization is now committing what he deems to be RICO. Now, that's his complaint to the FBI. And the reason why I actually wanted to talk about this is, again, these remedies. When you go from small claims and you just learn how to do that, first of all, you try to do it in your letters. You try to solve your disagreement in letter form. That's where you make your record of the disagreement, of the issue, the outstanding issue that you would move on. If you can't resolve it there, can start as a dialogue. Then to make a proof of it, you make a writing. That's the best thing to do. If that doesn't work, you go to your small claims court. Get used to how to do that. Start preparing your mind to know that the step up to state court and in federal court is just a matter of degree as to the application of the rules. You'll have to go read the rules. The main thing you want to know is the rule of evidence, because that's where your case is in the evidence you can properly support, what you bring and what you properly enter. That this discussion here is filing a complaint. It's what I told you before we've done at Jefferson Mining District, where we actually did a show cause that felony and treason had not been committed by an organization. And what happened to us? The FBI attacked us to show you that they're not merely the agency to go to. But that's okay. That's the record in writing we're making, correct? This is not about really thinking there's justice. It's about outing the criminals. And so this Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace, thinks there's been a breach of RICO. What I wanted to point out to you, as you move up in remedy or move in through remedies, there's elements. In fact, I just thought about it. This came up a little bit in the UCY chat the other night about doing this remedy. And I wanted to make sure the one that had the interest in it understood that when you do these things, when you actually do them, not just talk about them, that they have elements, they have requirements, they have burdens, they have things you have to do. Most of it is directed through the statute, but that's not the only place. That he says right here, RICO and wire fraud, witness tampering. RICO, you have to have another causative act. And RICO allows certain remedy, both civil and criminal, but you have to invoke it by certain causative elements that you have to prove by evidence. He mentions wire fraud. That's one of them. So he mentions right here the basis, at least in term, of the elements for a RICO, whether or not he's created the entity, the pattern, and all these other elements that are required is yet to be seen, would be seen by the complaint. But I just essentially wanted to point out here, he believes in the organization he has. They've taken that organization, a legal body, utilizing the color of that authority to destroy things. And he's calling that out as a racketeering operation. Whether the FBI can come up and do anything or will do anything, they call this terrorism. Whether they'll do anything, I don't know. But for us, we get to look in and say, okay, this is at least the evidence that this is how this part gets done. I will tell you that if you could tie in another statute to give you what's called the Attorney General, private Attorney General power, which is really just a term. Don't get all wired up about it. You have to find a statute that allows that power to you. Environmentalists have it through the Clean Water Act, where they have the right to file a complaint on behalf of the government due to a violation underneath that. You have to find those statutes. Then you can bring by your own cause where the agency in fact the agency is the DOJ, does not take on the cause, then you get to prosecute. So you can force the hand of the government. He's not saying he's doing that there. I'm just telling you, when you start looking at these remedies, there's a lot to think about as you move on through. The point is, you have to learn how to do this. No one's going to teach you how to do it. It's a lot of work. It's not something I even like doing. But I said, this is a war. This is literally a war against you. Your little ones, your future, their future. He's giving us the example of how you go about it. I don't know if I'd start on a RICO. I've done a couple of them. They're very difficult. And the courts are there, as we found out in our JMD versus Kitzhaber suit. The courts are in on it, right? So this is not surmise. It's not opinion. It's easy just to say, oh, yeah, they're corrupt. No, I got the perfected default judgment proving it. And how, folks? Or at least one part how, a major part how. This is what you do. You look through time and you say, how am I going to set myself up from my opinion to the fact? How do I establish that? And you're going to have to do it on more than a meatless diet. I'll tell you that. I mean, you're going to have, even if you go vegetarian, your mind is going to have to be present about this. Well, I keep seeing on WTWorldTruth.org, it's present because it's a gift. It's called the present because it's a gift. Yeah, I guess. Make it, folks, make it purposeful. So in the face of all this, then we have the dealings with the deception that overrides and clouds all that we're doing. And it provides for the government to allow itself and its agents to lie to you, which is another facet that I try to talk behind the woodshed, to be able to cut through and look at all this. And I say the Syria and the Middle East, all that, it's a mirror to what we should expect right here in the States. We shouldn't look over there and not think that reflects on us. In fact, we're the government, the people, but the government is the causative factor for that mirror's existence, actually. And what that government will do against those people, that government does against you, people. So we have to understand this. And there's been some discussion, and I really didn't touch too much on it. I think I talked about it a long time ago. But I ran across a video, and then he points out the law that you can read that did that. That took away the restraint for anything to happen at the point of media and or whatever promotes itself as media, entertainment and or whatever show display. It makes it lawful for the government to lie to you if it advances the needs of the government. And a video came by, and I didn't really look into this, but because it's important. There's a source for you to go to. So those of you that don't believe this, or even if you did but you didn't know where the source was that allowed the government to lie to you and give license to people to lie to you if it advances the cause, and also who's going to pay for it, which gives you the funding, follow the money. This little video, the gentleman goes through in the video, you get this in the Blogcaster, is why did they pass a law that makes staged hoaxes and crisis-acted movies legal? They did actually more than that. They said the media would be used for propaganda. This is that law. And so I wanted you to know that this is the truth in the war against you. This military establishment, the tool, that's just a tool as well, to keep this occupation in your life, gives itself license to violate you aggressively, continuously. That it was very interesting insight. You can see it for yourself. Again, it's not. You can take what I'm saying as an opinion. It's been written before. It's been done right underneath our nose. And this was called and I'm going to just read a couple passages just so you can hear it. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. What did I tell you about these acts that are modernizing? These are the notice to you that this is the new way of doing things. They've modernized. I thought they talk about postmodern. What is this nonsense they talk? What happened to the present? No, they're modernizing because it's a modernizing, and they're moderating. They're making it like a foreign thing. They need to drop and change this stuff over time. Modernizing, this has to do with also the occupier changing rules over the time. And in fact, they adjust in this Smith-Mundt Act of 2012, the United States Information and Education Exchange Act of 1948. And 48 is a very big year for the United States government as well, for those of you doing research. A lot of deceit happened in that time in the laws. That if you can see through that year, you can start seeing more of what I've been saying. And in fact, most of the states were required after 48 to adjust into the corporate standard. In fact, the 1939 tax laws were adjusted in 1954, just after all the states were required to adjust into a corporate standard. And that 1954 tax law adjusted the 1939 to say that these entities, these persons liable, would make records and keep books. And the 1953 state laws said, we will make records and keep books. And unless you see this and read it for yourself and understand that the words are there to know that they're written, you just think I'm talking, or you just parrot what I say. But for me, it's a proof in writing that you can't take from me. I don't care how many people, I can tell exactly what's going on with everybody's opinion. And I know that because they don't cite a source. I know right where I would look exactly to prove that certain conversations regarding corporatization states, what they're doing, how they're doing it. It's written. This is not made up. For the general authorization for this, the Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors, governance, folks, do you think? Board of Governors. You know, boards underneath the administrative law are agencies of the government as well. They're agents. They always follow administrative law. There is no law. There's no judicial side here. It's all executive side. So Congress is telling the executive branch this is how they're going to go about doing what they're going to do. Congress is the motive force for this. So all your political parties aren't helping you. For those of you who still kind of hang on to the game that's going on in the so-called elections. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy information programs to provide for the preparation, dissemination, and use of information intended for foreign audiences. Listen here, folks, as they change this. It says for foreign audiences, but what they limit here, they take away in a proviso later on. So listen for this. This is how they do it. This is how they put it on you. This is what happened in 1917. They put an exception to citizens of the United States, and in 1933 they took away that exception to the United States citizen being considered enemy combatants under the Trading with the Enemy Act as foreign commercial entities to the United States government itself. So foreign audiences, if you thought you were in the United States and you're a man or a woman, forget it. You're one of these audiences already to start with. But they even removed that exception. I guess it's the other folding of the dynamic here. The dissemination and use of information intended for foreign audiences abroad about the United States, its people, and its policies through press, publications, radio, motion pictures, the internet, and other information media, including social media, and through information centers, instructors, and other direct or indirect means of communication. The United States is a corporation. What are its people but more corporations? Very deceptive, but very obvious. Did you understand, or do you know, that the states in the United States are considered, each state, as a sovereign state, is considered abroad each other. Notwithstanding, there is no water around the imaginary line. They're considered under international law abroad each other. Except, as provided in paragraph 2, the Secretary and other Broadcasting Board of Governors may, upon request and reimbursement of the reasonable cost incurred in fulfilling such a request, make available in the United States motion pictures, films, videos, audios, and other materials prepared for dissemination abroad or disseminated abroad pursuant to this Act, the United States International Broadcasting Act, the radio broadcast to Cuba, or the Television Broadcast to Cuba Act. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall issue necessary regulations. I won't go through them. Let's jump down to the proviso. The proviso in the second paragraph. Actually, to what this is going to be able to do. That no funds authorized to be appropriated to the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors shall be used to influence public opinion in the United States. This section shall apply only to programs carried out pursuant to the United States Information and Education Exchange, the United States International Broadcasting Act of 1994, and the Radio Broadcasting Cuba Act, as well as the Television Broadcasting of Cuba Act. This section shall not prohibit or delay the Department of State or the other Broadcasting Board of Governors from providing information about its operations, policies, programs, or program material, or making such available to the media, public, what happened to the people, folks, or Congress, in accordance with the applicable law. Rules of construction. And I think this is where we see the proviso. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors from engaging in any medium or form of communication, either directly or indirectly, because the United States domestic audience is or may be thereby exposed to program material, or based on the presumption of such exposure. Such material may be made where available within the United States and disseminated when appropriate pursuant to the sections 502 and 1005 of the United States Information and Exchange Act, except that nothing in the section may be construed to authorize the Department of the State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors to disseminate within the United States any program material prepared for dissemination abroad on or before the effective date of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. Which means they just took away every obstruction to propagandize through any media in the United States of America. Think about what they've done there. That's the act that allows the government to lie to you. What do you think if any media they put out is made and supported and paid for by the government? In this video, I was talking about crisis actors. Certainly, that's the presentation, isn't it? The creation of a hoax condition is authorized and paid for by the United States if it advances the cause and the needs of the government. I've got links here to Title 22 of this code section. You can read for yourself. You can read it. Just put it all together. The pieces are here for us to be told of what is going on. Now, when you can't trust anything, what do you trust? I'm hoping a lot of you said, well, I'm going to have to trust myself. And even if you had a doubt in that, because maybe you don't know quite so much, or you feel incapable, or you feel diminished or disabled somehow, I hope you still said yourself. And then I hope you use any disabilities you feel as the reason why you have to make extinguish those disabilities. Take the time it takes to extinguish those disabilities and realize it's on us, because we can't rely on anything external to us in government. Government has failed us. They claim that right there. How do you deal with a liar? And when you know that they make lies in order to harm you, how do you continue to walk with that? As I asked you before, or to ask you to do, take the ring out of your nose that makes you the accessory to the crime being perpetrated against you by these people. Remember, Congress passed that. That's everybody's agreeable. That's all the political parties. Oh, Trump. Oh, Rubio. Oh, Hitler. These people are all in on it. In particular, I was hearing, just hearing it out of their words, I always get shocked. Trump is like a major warmonger. He's a major supporter. Almost, it sounded like I've heard him support Israel more than he's ever stated he would support the United States of America. But he's a warmonger, and he would do it for the oil. That tells me he's either short-sighted or he's lying. Because you just don't go over to Syria to do the oil, because all this nation is subject to the United Nations, whether or not it can be ratified in treaty. And that I've read it behind the Woodshed, the document of the plan for the next 15 years. That it's not about just the oil. It's about a whole lot more. It's the destruction of peoples. It's the imposition of sustainable debt worldwide, and the control of behavior of people to maintain that. That again, this technocracy speaks up, this big data steps up, surveillance steps up. How do you think they keep control of this? Everyone complains, well, Syria doesn't have a bunch of people, all these refugees, maybe they don't have the right documentation, they're making it up. They're going to fix that. That's why it's an issue. Everybody will have an ID. You will be that global citizen. There will be no borders to protect you from somebody else's insanity. You will become one big cell. You will have nothing outside of that. There is no distinction under multiculturalism, under what they call diversity. There is none. You're not diverse from what is doing the imposition. And I guess as long as they're a lot liking you, you can show that you're a difference. And that's going to be a very powerful thing to remember. That's what I say. I don't believe that it's the belief in authority. You have to have your own authority. You have to believe in yourself as greater than any other authority, to the extent that, that it's still not going to be violative aggression on someone else. We're going to have to get ourselves in a better mind on this. I don't. Again, my mind to you just doesn't come out maybe so clear. Maybe you see some of this stuff, but there's a deeper knowledge that just comes with all of this. It's not a question. It's not an issue before the court to decide. Every time you make these issues, you also hand it to someone else to do. They want your information because they need to keep track of what's going on. They need to keep track of your mobility, how you do it, where you're going to go. They're going to take away your property. They need to keep the communication line open to you, whether you like it or not. And they're going to do it aggressively. And that seems okay. It's not okay, but it's okay as long as you leave it, you continue to be silent. Remember, I talked to you, the mirror, that when Paris happened, I said, listen, they're going for more surveillance. They didn't get enough. And look how fast it went. And then we found out that by the next week they had the place locked down. Well, it's in the news again. They want connection to you. After Paris attacks, French cops want to block Tor and forbid free Wi-Fi. For those of you technically able, you're going to have to set up a nice, simple mesh system. If they're going to go this way, you got to have an alternative, like I've been saying about your monetary system, your financial system. You have to have a completely independent system, well, as independent as you can possibly make it. Remember, the fiat bucks will flood about anything you do. The only thing that isolates you is your ability to get to the stuff of the life of the ground, the soil. That I don't see how they're going to have to physically stop that from you and those you work with. But so anything you develop can be washed, diluted if you're not careful. They want to know about you. They want to know where you are. They don't want your anonymous character. This is what the Windows 10 thing's about. They don't want you to know you're being surveilled, and they're willing to do things intentionally. So right within a month, they're here, folks. We're given the mirror of what's happening. It's already happened in the United States. NDAA really was the wake up that we flop positions where Britain used to be a 6 months ahead. I told you it used to be 2 years and then 6 months. I said, folks, it's going to be a time when we're going to be taking the lead. Sure enough, we did. NDAA flopped the whole picture. Things happen in the United States before it goes anywhere now. And I hear crickets. But Paris is showing us the government is actively going to use these frauds and fictions and hoaxes, these things the government's given itself license to lie to you in order to justify other thefts. And you can disregard these things, or you can nod agreeably and say, okay, there it is, and that's it. Folks, this is the notice that you have to start doing more than just acknowledging it's a force to be reckoned with. You have to reckon to do something and do something about it. That can come in many, many forms. And this, if, like I've told you, it's already been written down what they're doing in France. Not that I've read this document. This came out later. Declassified CIA manual shows how U.S. uses bureaucracy to stabilize governments. So the documents are coming out. Declassified document from 1944. It was talked about the CIA sabotage. In fact, I think Corbett report right before me on UCY Sunday, they were even talking about this. Again, I can only do so much in such a time. I'm not going to even go through too much about it. I don't even like reading this. I've told you, you get to go read it. It's right here. But here's what my point on this. Okay, we have the proof now. We've known it, but here's the proof. It's the plan. It's how they do it. And as they show you this one, and you focus on this, or you hear about it, and whoever talks about it is focused on this, you miss the one that's already been working in your life up until now, right on the internet. If you just go to the World Bank, it's the same techniques that they're using, the same things. They call them toolkits. And if you look at them, they're toolkits on how they take out your way of life, how to take out every type of government down to the local district body governing whatever you're going to do, your little taxing district. The toolkits from the World Bank will tell you how you develop a nation right out of their culture, tradition, and every other mode of natural progression that got them where they are. CIA has been documenting how to do it for a long time. That's government. That's the entirety of government. If I'm telling you that the UN, through the financial structure that's been, the UN as a tool, relying on the development bank of the World Bank, has toolkits that will explain to anybody who wants how you are being taken down. And it uses this very same sabotage field manual technology. It essentially tells you, like I was explaining to you, and I haven't even read this document. I'm just telling you this is what they're doing. I should just make that disclosure. What little bit I heard from the report, reading from it, is, didn't I talk to you about Pope dialoguing with all religions to interject a false question for acceptance, that if they did take that on to dialogue about it, they just subverted their own setup. They subverted their own belief system. That's all. That's one of the techniques. It's called dialoguing. You interject a false signal. And what do you get out of it? You get a false signal out. And if you got the right signal going in, if you know about signal intelligence, you get the right intelligence out. Well, it's your outcome that you wanted. If I send two signals in, I have a beat frequency, the creation of which is what I want, contrary to all other frequencies in there. In this dialogue, this frequency exchange, this communication exchange. It's really let's talk about natural law. We're so clueless to a lot of it. I'm amazed just to kind of realize it. But here it is. We get declassified document. You can read about it, the story about the simple sabotage field manual. It goes through this stuff with the World Bank. The World Bank has toolkits. These eco-terrorists, the climate change fraudsters, the UN, the Pope, the sustainable development plunderers, the carbon tax market people. This is the stuff they use. And if we don't understand the dynamic, we're toast. I don't really know. I don't know what to say. We're toast. They've got it over on us, and they use ourselves against us. Why the the protocols of the elders of Zion, realizing that was just as much a manual of our foibles as any other thing that could be fabricated for whatever other reason someone wants to make up with it. Now, you don't understand that you can know that someone knows you better than yourself. You don't have a chance. And the one thing that they rely on is the fact that we are more apathetic than we are active, and we will raise that bar up as high as we need to stay apathetic, and we will try to make every excuse to recognize the danger till the last little bit, and these people rely on every bit of that. Think about that. You're being used while you sit there thinking about it. It's kind of a devastating thought when you understand that they're working 24/7 and we're chatting in the chat rooms and worried about what we're going to do, against each other, and maybe what's going on at the next show, or all the stuff we think we know about how bad the world is and who's done it to us, and it's all useless. It's all irrelevant unless it's addressing these people. I was just talking about the United States jumping ahead of the rest of the world by going extrajudicial in the NDAA. Crickets here. That had jumped ahead of Britain in where the whole of Europe was going to constrain their people. And here's the proof of it. United States, the use of secret courts confirms the end of democracy in Britain. I laughed when I read this. This is news? The use of secret courts in a place where trials take place that is not open to the public, nor generally reported in the news, and generally no official record of the case of the judge's verdict is made available. Often there is no legal allegation. The accused is usually not able to obtain the counsel of a lawyer or confront witnesses for the prosecution, and the proceedings are characterized by perceived miscarriage of justice to the benefit of the ruling powers of society. This is the stuff of Cold War Russia and Nazi Germany, right? Think again. In the English-speaking world, one of the most notorious secret courts was the Star Chambers, as it was used in Charles I, and in the early 17th century, the abuses of the Star Chamber were one of the rallying points of the opposition that organized around Oliver Cromwell and ultimately resulted in the execution of the deposed king. The term Star Chamber became a generalized term of the court that was accountable to no one except the chief executive, and was used to suppress political dissent and eliminate the enemies of regime. Let me just stop there. Let's go back to the top. What does that sound like? They're talking the use of secret courts confirms. Folks, I laughed. What's the joke? United States is front and center of that. We don't even get courts now. At least they have Star Chambers, if you think it wasn't bad enough then. Secret courts. In the United States, it went extrajudicial. There is no need for a court. How is this news? Boy, in England, you've got it good, folks, down there in Britain. Congratulations. You're now freer than the people of the United States, and they don't know it. Crickets. I laughed. The use of secret courts. You don't get them in the United States if the executive doesn't want you to have it. And I heard crickets. Vigilant? If you can keep it a republic, give me a break. That's if it was a good thing. And I've already told you that Article 6 tells you it was a servitude. The whole of the United States of America was started as a debt. Why do you think the future is that same debt now global? And you keep quiet, and they keep bringing it on, and they keep bringing more excuses to take your stuff away from you. They keep you from moving around. Now, I talked to you about you're going to need a passport. They're telling us to go between states, abroad each other. Remember? That's where you have ports of entry, right? They're abroad of each other, these states. You don't realize we're sitting on a big floating mass of independent, individual, fabricated islands called states that are doing commerce amongst each other. That to go anywhere now in the country is going to be locked down. That if you believe that you had a constitutional right to do something, you're going to find out that the state rights powers are going to start to encroach upon that, and you all are saying nothing about it. Connecticut asks for no-fly list to screen gun buyers. Governor Daniel P. Malloy jumped into a roiling national debate over gun control, civil liberties, and terrorism Thursday by revealing he has asked the White House for access to the United States no-fly list and other terrorism watch lists to screen firearms purchases in Connecticut. I intend to sign the first in the nation executive order, one that will result in the banning of the sale of guns to those on government watch lists, Malloy said in an earlier afternoon press conference. If you don't get that what he's doing is addressing something that did not originate from due process, that was a conjured up list without proof, that he's going to use now to interfere underneath the excuse of the war of terrorism on you, to effectively have the government take away the very purpose for why that gun exists. If you haven't been keeping track of this dynamic, you're really missing the more important and exciting point. They're taking a list that has no due process to use to take away another right. Now, that's presumed to be lawful, and no one steps up to say, whoa, hold on. No one hits him with a fiduciary duty before the fact. No one challenges this watch list to be a facade and fraud on its face. Now, he's made a request. I guess he's got a little bit of trouble of getting it. But here it is, folks. You're coming to the day. You think you have a right? And you think the state's power is all powerful because you want to believe in the state's rights? Well, here it comes. They're making any excuse to take away what you thought was the way of life that you were told. And there's no constraint. Well, the constraint is there. It's just being crickets. Using the watch list to keep people from buying it. Where's that listed in the Second Amendment on top of that? No, the judges have invented that there's certain statuses that you get, like felonies, that makes so you can't have guns. I don't see that written down either. But this is the occupation that we've allowed and justified to be in our lives. That is continue the precedent of which allows them to continue the oppression. And aggressively so. How aggressive is it that they do that? They take away your right of defending yourself against the very government making the claim that you are a terrorist, and they do it without other protections of the Constitution they profess to be upholding. Necessity is a real difficult thing to address. You're going to have to come to terms with that to defeat it. And I tell you to allege it's a false necessity what they're doing. In fact, they are the criminal actors. It's no different than we found the method by which they destroy the state, or we sued them. We said, your system is set up. The things that have been done under the color of authority have been set up to destroy the very Republican form of representative government, and the reason why the government's established, in particular to protect production and property, that it was set out to do, that you took an oath not to trespass against. This is what the war of terror has done. It's a stateless, unidentifiable thing. What is it? Someone in grammar, they said this is a verb or a noun or something. I mean, a noun. How does a noun do anything? At any rate, I mean, it's just a person, place, or thing, right? So we have to really stop and think about what these people are willing to do. I would have to tell you that Connecticut is pretty well liberalized to the extreme, and I don't think that's even justification because that word's been adulterated, but it's internationalized. This guy wants to be the first one is sending a message, and I don't know why why we haven't seen the social media that's controlled by the government as well. Maybe that's why it hasn't been ringing off the hook, if you will. Why these things aren't trending. Why 10,000 lawsuits didn't go against him. misappropriating public funds to stop the very thing that people have the right to do against a government that would go ahead and do that to stop the people from being able to abrogate their government as they saw fit. Are we kind of getting it, folks? Are we seeing it's going to take more than recognizing we have a problem? We're going to have to do something about it. That this government will go in and destroy your life and don't care. They cause you to have to migrate. How many people lost their houses, folks? They're migrated into houselessness, homelessness. Tax home. Home is your tax home, folks. That's what you pay taxes on. That's what your income is based in. Everyone doesn't even understand this is connected to the tax laws as well. They emigrated you from your middle class into some other place. And then the war and the division happens and the war starts. You're fighting just for your existence every day. How effective are you going to be? I told you this was going to happen as well. Not that it wasn't unforeseen. It was happening at the time I said it, but I said it's going to get worse. This is when I first started broadcasting. I said partly why people wanted me to get on and start to talk to more people. I did enough research that you could just see the future laid right out for us. This international thing that's showing us what's in store for everybody, the globe, is really, it's frustrating because it's right there for me to see. I don't know why most people don't see it. I'm talking at the point of really wanting to do something about it. Again, what have I done? Well, we have a judgment, a perfected default judgment showing that sustainable development is a treason. That's in a law. That's in law, folks. That's the record I can rely on. Where does it go? Well, when you're up against an enemy, what do? You have to do what you can, right? I mean, you do what you can. And so what's interesting to me in this, doing this mirror idea and reflection back to Europe, to the Middle East, when we see these conditions coming down, that they're trying to take your ability to defend yourself against your own government. When an intruder came in to those countries, that we heard were the Arab Spring, so-called, they were just agitators from outside, actually inciting the peacefulness of the riots of the discontented protesters, which we would probably see in lots of places. They inflame that to the point of actually threatening the government. That is a terrorism. That's the definition. That the government had to take control is really an interesting distinction between what a government tries to do to protect itself in some benevolent fashion because of an outside trespass that it is proxied, if we can say it that way, versus the invisible one we have here in the United States. It's our government ourselves attacking us directly, and we won't acknowledge it. As we won't acknowledge both, either the proxied war against people or the one that comes in our face directly. What they claimed right in that law, the direct or indirect. All this stuff is right there for us to see. But I want to go back down into Syria and see what the government's trying to do in the face of what Russia was helping. As I told you, the air campaign would stop the stalemate. And given that stalemate was what it was without air support, the ground troops of the Syrian army would be the boots on the ground for Syria to start to clear out. That we're seeing that the government fighting against this insurrection against it from outside, however you want to term it, they view the people trying to overthrow their government as terrorists. And here we would do the same thing, except we don't recognize our own government as the terrorist. A major victory for Damascus as rebels agree to give up the city of Homs was interesting, because in this case, where they're attacking the government's not seeking to disable them by taking away their guns because it's a latent threat to the government. This is an overt threat by an external support. That the government comes in and says, listen, put down your arms, pledge not to fight the government, go back to your jobs, and we will be fine. The government over there understands it was an outside influence that got these people all fired up to go fight themselves. that I found this little report here pretty encouraging. We have to mend ourselves first as well here, the mirror, advancing another remedy for ourselves. We have to stop the division. We have to de-escalate ourselves to be able to focus on who the real criminal is here. And a deal has been reached for thousands of insurgents to leave the last opposition-held neighborhood in the central city of Homs, and for state institutions to return to the area, an opposition monitoring group and a Syrian official said Tuesday. Homs residents were among the first to rise up against Bashar al-Assad in 2011, and the city was once known as the capital of the revolution. This was incited from outside. It's like the anarchists that turn out to be the cops, to get the cops to shoot the protesters, to create the incident that creates the government to come down and put their boot on someone's neck. In this case, the government's coming back and said, listen, that wasn't us, actually. Come back and start becoming productive and bring our society back. Let us get government aid back in the town. And these people somehow are doing that. They're negotiating their way back to a peaceful place. Guess that's what I want to say there. Why? Because this is where government, regardless of what we've been told, they know a civil war will destroy the entirety of those people. And if you want to talk about what the immigration problem, you know Syria is not inside the World Bank construct. They realize the migration problem and what it does to the nation. That's as much a war against them as the bombing that's going on or the fighting. They are attempting, and they realize they have to stop the migration. As we've said, that 7-year-old boy said, I just want to go back home. They don't want to be refugees. They're driven as the herd of the animals they tend to become when they have nothing else to rely on, no one else to even resort to as a society to protect themselves. They have to be protected against that. Is what is being attacked to see what's going on. And I don't see that much different than the United States. When we see the destruction of the middle class, you see the Detroitification of America. The nuclear bomb looks like it went off in the place. Someone compared it to Hiroshima or worse. I mean, please, folks, don't we see the destruction happening here too? Then the influx of other immigrants to really stir the pot, this melting pot. It was from the beginning, the melting pot of the United States was the destruction of itself if it didn't keep its principles. That we get this communication coming out. It's just lunacy. And I really can't see how this Bashar al-Assad is that evil a guy compared to what these other people are. Dick Cheney attacks Trump for ban Muslims comment. Former fine, but Dick Cheney was fine with illegally bombing Muslims, not banning them. This insanity that sits in the United States, while Syria is trying to keep itself together, making negotiating with its people because of friction that was developed, and it went to arms. The thing we don't want to happen. The very thing that the government is trying to take away from us in case we need to have it happen as a counterpoint, folks. This is the other thing, realize. Dick Cheney comes up and attacks Trump for him wanting to ban Muslims when Dick Cheney would rather go bomb those people. Has to tell you the height of insanity of the politics and the government in the United States. Something else we have to protect against. This is the division that drives. It's a false division. They're both warmongers. The constraint of the Muslims, so-called, may have been an error of speech, but in fact there are provisions for immigration control. And I'm not supporting Trump. I think they're all a big... Well, he had a game show or something on the TV. That's all we're looking at, right? In fact, he suspended that TV program to do his entertainment on the stage, didn't he? But to maintain a control of the people coming into your borders is paramount to be done. There's lots of good reasons why you do that. But to focus on a religious belief, that was just completely the wrong statement. That shows you, I think that was a telegraphing of the truth of him. That's not some reason you do that for. Because then who's next, folks? When are you the next Muslim? Especially when they go to states abroad needing passports. Who's the next Muslim on the no-fly list? Talk about real ID going national and having trouble. You wait till they get that no-fly list, which doesn't have any constraint, and just goes across the country like a house of fire. They're looking for ways to take you out. And you can't. And if you're crickets, you have a much smaller place to be the cricket. And at some point, you will be having a boot on your neck and crushed. These same people, Dick Cheney attacking Trump, ridiculous. One guy would murder people, the other guy wants to ban them. The ridiculousness of this condition, and at the same time, again, in the propaganda of the United States, it's almost a joke. In fact, I think it is. I laugh first, and then I cry without too long. I just look at this as what nonsense. That we hear about Syria and Russia trying to get those people back into getting a place for them to go back to live again. Trying to do it diplomatically, and again, I'm on record. I'm not a Putin fan. I'm just wanting to see more of a diplomatic, statesman-like approach to everything in the world. Really do the peace instead of talking about it. Don't be peace under the defense when you're actually the War Department. Don't say defense when you mean war. That kind of the doublespeak. Let's stop that. But we heard the story right after when also Russia strikes killed Syrian soldiers. The Pentagon says there's a big deal about who attacked the Syrian soldiers. I find it fascinating. There hasn't been much evidence, but the Pentagon comes right out and says that the Russia strikes killed the Syrian soldiers in a country that will also as insanely say that they can propagandize to everyone. I just read the act. You can go find it. You get the link. The truth is gone from these people. The Pentagon cannot be trusted, even if Russia did it. They're not ashamed at being wrong. One error after the next, just for the propaganda of saying Russia's the bad guy. I think that in some regard they're all the bad guy. But for the Pentagon to come and blame that strike on the Syrian soldiers, maybe there was a mistake. We don't know. But that the Pentagon came out and said that is just one bad joke after the next. One lie on top of the next. And people suck it up. They either suck it up and agree with it, or they suck it up and don't respond to it. People going on the stage of the television and talking nonsense. Actually, I was watching a video, people getting upset that the so-called unqualified one didn't speak to them, didn't tell them it was okay. How immature is that we're waiting for someone to stand in front of a teleprompter and say, you're okay. I've got everything under control. And the proof is he had nothing in control. I'm still looking to why people can't see the strings attached to his mouth and his arms and is standing there. And yet people that are supposed to be grown up say that they felt angry because he didn't make them feel secure. That's our problem. These are lunatics, psychopaths in offices that we are wanting to see protect, coddle us. People that would lie on anybody if it advanced their agenda. Speaking of which, the Pope kicks off a special Jubilee Year of Mercy. Well, he talks about economy all the time. What happened to the Jubilee for debt? What I found interesting in this story, another guy is on the stage. I told you they'd come and enter on the stage. It's prevalent right now. It's the war against us. This Pope Francis goes to the holy door of the St. Peter's Basilica to kick off the extraordinary Jubilee year while urging his church to reach out to the modern world. The modern world. This is the modern world he's reaching out, folks. The modernized world is the UN world. What I found fascinating about this, remember we talk about language and we talk about context and jurisdictions, that it says right in here, of all the notices that you can get from all these things, that he has a special phrase that they do this ritual to open these doors, and last time it was done 15 or so years ago, in 2000. Many having streams of tears across their, down their face over this. It's very emotional, very important. And do you know what he does this time, which I found fascinating? Is he doesn't speak the Latin language. He actually speaks Italian this time when he opens this door. And I'll tell you, from a political standpoint and or a jurisdictional standpoint, that is an immense adjustment. He also says did that to modernize the church. A communication. If you don't understand these terms that they're using to tie together this world domination plan, you're missing it right in front of your face. They actually, in this report, they actually bring up the COP21 Global Climate Conference in Paris, all part of the notice. Now remember, this guy's supposed to be the infallible one. You think if you're a Christian belief, you walk around and example Jesus by healing people by your faith and the faith in God and the Holy Spirit. This guy goes, remember, Pope Francis blesses cancer-stricken child on the way to Independence Mall. And then we get the word here just this last week, Landon Vargas, blessed by Pope Francis in Philly, has died. Now my view is that if he was an actual Christian, why did he only bless? Why didn't he cure? We see evidence of it all over the place. But this guy has got the touch of death on him now. As he opens this Jubilee by utilizing the Italian language and not the Latin, which again the Latin was a obstruction to the actual view, the actual words itself. It was a constraint on the people of the believers as well. So let's not get too wrapped up in that I'm agreeing to certain things. I'm saying there was a change and that meant something when it's tied to these things that are happening today, postmodern, in the new world, where world leaders, I was claimed, were about to announce an unprecedented climate change deal. They in fact have made a landmark climate change agreement hailed as a leap for mankind. What happened to the humans here, folks? See how they change all this? Well, let me just say, as I've had this little thing, all they've based all of this on is what I didn't say before, but it keeps going in my mind. It's the magic show right before it. It's science pocus. They put this stuff on us like it's real. It's a magic show. They conjure up different languages and do this, and hands moving and all this other stuff going on. They get you to focus on the wrong thing. You don't listen to the terminology. You don't listen to what they're talking about. And this climate deal, so-called, is really only to urge. There's no action here, no imperative. Urge nations to comply. To show you we still have some time, folks. You still have some time to knock these people out of their nonsense. This is not a leap for mankind. This is the humanist technocrats. They're going to get their way if you continue to be the crickets that you might actually be. Thank you for tuning in today. Hope it's been some advantage to you, to empower you to go do something. Find out where you can, folks. Fix it. Donate where you can and how you can. reallibertymedia.com with Grimner and the servers and the broadcaster page for that, and the archives, worldtruth.org, social network. Join up. Have a good time there. Again, I'm a little bit all thumbs when I get into those. I don't quite understand all that, but good people here around doing things. That's where our servers go. Donate to that. Grammy Mary's taken that on to her own. It'd be nice to have help there. UCY Jules and a time slot she allows for the broadcast. I'm sure she could use some help, and the broadcasters. Thank you very much for carrying the broadcast. MarkOnTheBeach.yahoo.com is where you can get in touch with me and tell other broadcast networks of this broadcast and have them start playing it. Yes, I'm 2 hours nonstop, but I don't know. Well, maybe we can work out something. They can cut me off for 20 minutes or whatever, every 20 minutes, whatever they want. We'll just keep talking. But get the show promoted if you want. Take care.